Tonight, firefighters in Saskatoon are on the front lines of homelessness, and we got to see their work firsthand. And single-use masks no more. A Regina professor is figuring out how to recycle the material in creative ways. Plus, a food company that caters to people with disabilities and their dreams for the future.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It's Tuesday, February 21st. CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Hello, and thank you for joining us. Sam McKeag is away this week. Vladimir Putin tried to portray Russia as the real victim today in his address to the nation, as the country's forces keep up the fight in Ukraine. He also blamed the West for starting the conflict. The U.S. president recently visited Kiev before heading to Poland. He says Putin chose this war and only he can end it. Briar Stewart reports.
In Russia, there was wall-to-wall coverage of President Vladimir Putin's speech. It was even beamed down over the few pedestrians passing by this mall in Moscow. He spoke for nearly 2 hours to a crowd of the country's political elite and what appeared to be a few soldiers. Putin again said it was the West waging war, while referring to Russia's invasion only as a special military operation. I want to repeat, it was the West who started this war, he said, and we used and are using force to stop it. There was no talk of what's been happening on the battlefield. Instead, pronouncements about how Russia's economy is weathering, even thriving under the sanctions. Not all are as enthusiastic. There is no reason to believe in the economy, said this man. Where will all these successes come from? We have a lot of opportunities, even though in many places the doors are closed. In his speech, Putin announced that Russia was suspending its participation in New START, its last remaining nuclear treaty with the U.S. Russian officials later said they are still committed to observing the limits around nuclear warheads, and they could resume participating in the treaty again if the U.S. changed its policy. Hours later, when U.S. President Joe Biden spoke to a crowd of thousands in Warsaw, he took aim at Russia's president.
President Putin chose this war. Every day the war continues is his choice. He could end the war with a word.
Biden's speech and the setting presented a triumphant air, a tone much different than the speech in Moscow.
He does not have a clear strategic vision.
This political researcher says Putin's speech was unremarkable because there isn't much to brag about.
I think Putin himself understands that the West will never consent to these demands. So it's more like a demonstration of resolve, so we're not going to stop. One clear message in the speech is that the war is not going to stop.
A large part of Putin's speech focused on domestic initiatives like helping soldiers' families and making life more affordable. It can be seen as a deliberate effort to boost confidence in the president at a time when the war he started now enters its second year. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
And as the one-year anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine approaches, one woman who fled the country to Saskatoon just last week is sharing her story. Yulia Pelivan is from Irpin, a small city just northwest of the capital. She had to watch and experience firsthand the war devastate her homeland.
A full wall missing.
No one from my circle, anyone, colleagues, friends, nobody believed that a full-scale invasion would happen. So on the 24th, I was woken up by my husband, and I just had to wake up at 6 a.m. anyway, by the news that he said that a full-scale invasion has happened, that Volodymyr Zelensky, our president, has informed by an official video that Russia has started a full-scale invasion. And so we turned out the gas, we closed the door, and we started running towards the shelter, which for us was the underground parking lot. We met my mom really quickly. She ran out as well, and then I looked at the sky, and there was around 5-6 fighter jets that flew by. for us, we try to like hold on mentally and emotionally as much as possible. We were thinking of just what are we gonna do after we're gonna get out? That was sort of the thing that sort of held all of us, together. And it's also, the thing is, we were not alone. I finally came here. I felt a lot of relief, and I'm absolutely grateful to everyone in Canada, to the Canadian government, and to everyone who has helped out Ukrainians and still helping. And that's sort of what I would continue to ask from the Canadian people, is to continue helping in whatever way anybody can. It's not just like the donations, weapons, and things like that is very important. Taking in Ukrainians into your home is also very important. But even on social media, if you have social media, to spread as much information as possible, because what a lot of Canadians don't know is that the Ukrainian armed forces, actually, their morale is very, very high when they can see the whole world behind them, the whole world supporting them. So when they see messages from Canadians that are supporting them, saying that you have to be strong, you have to continue, that you'll be victorious, it'll help, of course, helps them in this fight. Yeah.
Tonight on The National, CBC's chief correspondent, Adrienne Arsenault, is in Kiev. She'll be bringing you special coverage all week, along with our correspondents. Watch The National from Ukraine tonight at 10 p.m. on CBC TV. You can also stream it on CBC Gem and CBC News Explore. Homelessness continues to be a pressing issue in this province. To get a sense of its scope in Saskatoon, CBC News got an inside look at how firefighters are directly helping people on the streets. Bertush Dayal had a chance to ride along on their daily rounds.
56 of our 66 neighborhoods have unhoused individuals that we have interacted with.
Yvonne Raymer says to beat the wind chill, some houseless people find shelter in vacant properties. And sometimes, the Saskatoon Assistant Fire Chief says, fires are lit inside to help keep them warm. But that can be dangerous. That's why Raymer says the fire department takes a proactive approach by checking in with folks about why they are not in a shelter or permanent housing.
Into temporary housing.
Raymer says firefighters did about 600 of these check-ins in December alone, and they've found some people still don't want to go to shelters.
They're so deep into their addiction that the thought of going to shelter where maybe they might not be able to use for a certain amount of time is actually very daunting to them.
Raymer says there are also people who live with mental health issues who prefer isolation. But some things many of us take for granted can also show up as barriers.
What are some of those gaps?
So some of the gaps are pretty what would be simple to you and I. Identification. They lose their belongings, or if somebody steals their identification, you can't do anything without an ID.
Have you guys seen any individuals hanging out here trying to stay warm?
Raymer says unsheltered people often try to warm up in areas around the hospital. That's why firefighters do laps around here.
You're okay? Just trying to stay warm?
Downtown, behind the lighthouse shelter, an encampment is set up in the back alley.
I'm never going to encourage living in these types of conditions. It's not safe. It's freezing. It's supposed to get even colder.
Community groups say inflation and the rising cost of living has many low-income renters struggling. Len Usiskin with the Quinn Development Corporation says Saskatchewan's new income assistance program is also adding fuel to the crisis.
And the fact that they've cut the direct payments of rents to landlords, all these things are, they're just piling up and contributing to this perfect storm of homelessness in our city.
A lack of affordable housing and evictions are also making the problem worse, says Sarah Bueller, a University of Saskatchewan law professor. She's been researching evictions from the first 2 years of the pandemic.
One of the things that I found is that landlords win in the vast majority of cases when it comes to evictions. The other thing that I found is the most common ground for eviction in Saskatchewan is arrears of rent or non-payment of rent.
More than 1,900 evictions were granted in Saskatchewan over the last year or so, and that's according to the Office of Residential Tenancies. And so far this year, court records show that there have already been more than 320 documented cases. But experts say the real number is likely even higher. Pratish Dayal, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Cancer patients in Saskatchewan are now able to access a new treatment. Adults with certain blood cancers and lymphomas can now receive CAR-T therapy. The process involves collecting a patient's T cells and engineering them to recognize and attack cancer cells. The cells are multiplied, then put back into the patient where they carry out that attack. Gary Carrier was diagnosed with lymphoma 3 years ago. He had to travel to Montreal for CAR-T therapy.
Very thankful for them. But I'm 64 years old. One good thing about CAR-T, I went out gray and I came home with dark hair. That's one good thing about CAR-T. Another good thing about CAR-T. Yeah. So my wife is jealous. She's jealous.
Carrier is now cancer-free. CAR-T therapy will be available in Saskatoon. And a mechanical engineering professor in Regina is finding new uses for single-use face masks. She's experimenting with combining the plastic with other waste products. Sam Sampson shows us that transformation process and its potential to reduce pollution.
Here's our plate.
It's thin, it's sturdy.
As you can see, this would make an excellent clipboard.
It's made out of used face masks.
We get our masks collected from facility management.
Single-use face masks were a literal lifesaver during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Researchers say hundreds of billions have been used worldwide since 2020, but they contain polypropylene plastic, which takes hundreds of years to break down. Stilling researches ways to recycle waste products at the University of Regina.
The pandemic hit, and then you saw all these masks littering the sidewalks and coming in our waterway. That's when I went, let's do masks. First, we're getting rid of the elastomer.
She rips off the ear loops and the metal nose piece.
We can just put it into the hopper.
Shreds the masks, mixes them with other waste products.
We'll push it into the corners.
Pours that into a compression mold.
We'll place it in the convection oven.
And bakes it for 2.5 hours at 200 degrees Celsius.
Then we'll let it cool so that it stays under that pressure and the board doesn't actually warp, and we'll undo it.
And you've got yourself a prototype. The young grad students who work with Stilling on these experiments say their generation is forced to address the pollution caused by single-use plastics.
Even a small amount of changes will matter a lot for future.
Different recipes yield different strengths and stretchiness, so the materials could become anything from countertops to pavement blocks.
What a great opportunity. You look at our landfills that are filled with plastics. If we don't have to worry about the contamination, we can use sand and dirt as an additive. We've got a raw source that doesn't cost us hardly anything.
Stilling says she's doing her part, coming up with prototypes. It's up to the world now to make something out of it. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Regina.
More than 100 people have signed a letter calling for Regina's mayor to do a better job dealing with 2 councillors she's been butting heads with. Alexander Kwan has the latest from City Hall.
On Friday, 5 women went to Regina City Hall on a mission. They're among the more than 100 women and non-binary people who have signed this letter, calling out comments made by Mayor Sandra Masters late last year. They're in response to a lawsuit filed by 2 city councillors.
Personally, I think it's disgusting. I think that for a first female city manager, there's tones of sexism in it.
Councillors Andrew Stevens and Dan LeBlanc were attempting to compel the city manager to include a motion to end homelessness in last fall's budget talks. While the lawsuit failed, the fallout continues. LeBlanc was recently ousted from the board of a new community organization, and both councillors have now been accused of harassment. That's why these community members say they had to take a stand.
I think that the importance of having 100+ signers that are women in this community come together and sign this letter is really, we're saying that we're a united front and we're here together.
The letter condemns the mayor for implying that the lawsuit is sexist. It argues the mayor should not try to discredit LeBlanc and Stevens, who are standing up for the people in their wards. The councillors represent the Heritage and North Central neighborhoods, and they've been vocal about wanting to do something about the homelessness that they see in these areas every day. Many of the letter's signatures come from people who work with community groups trying to address homelessness, like Mirta Rivera, who sits on the board of Carmichael Outreach.
When you're homeless and you're a woman, you're more prone to be attacked and assaulted, and you are not going to get the credibility that you have because of many other issues. So this is a feminist issue.
The city of Regina says it will not comment on the letter, but it did confirm that the mayor received it. The city says she will comment on the issue after this week's meeting of City Council. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
This weather update is brought to you by the Capital Automotive Group. Trade and upgrade is on now.
Welcome back. Weather specialist Ethan Williams joins us now. I spent much of the weekend embracing winter, and something tells me I snuck that in just in time.
Yes, as you can tell, we are in the deep freeze, Natasha, and in fact, right now across the province, we do have extreme cold warnings in effect for almost everyone, except south central regions, including Moose Jaw and the southwest, including Swift Current and Maple Creek. But for the rest of us, we are in the purple here, and if you're playing weather bingo, you have a blackout in Manitoba because the entire province there is seeing extreme cold warnings. Coldest of the air is centered kind of just to the east of us, but really it's in the north near -30 right now is where we're topping out or bottoming out, I guess, in terms of our coldest temperatures, and still very cold through south and central right now into the low to mid -20s. Factor in the wind chill, that's feeling into the -40s in far northeastern Saskatchewan and closer to the -30s in south and central right now. In fact, both Regina and Saskatoon sitting close to -35. Now, in terms of the winds themselves, they've been fairly light, but that really doesn't matter once we get this cold. Strongest gusts have actually been in the north of the province today. Now, in terms of our sky conditions over these next few days, high pressure really going to be driving what we're seeing. Really cold, really clear conditions. And as that moves eastward through tomorrow, I think we'll continue to see a mostly sunny day through much of the province, maybe a little bit of cloud cover in the west. But that high pressure is keeping this very messy system in the states at bay. Some heavy snow through the northern plain states. For us, that will translate into some light snow possibly tomorrow night into early Thursday morning along the southern portion of the province. But I think especially for those of you in southwestern Saskatchewan who saw a little bit of a storm and some snow over these past couple of days, these amounts not going to get anywhere near that. And then high pressure moves back in for Thursday, clearing out the cloud cover. Now, in terms of our wind gusts, I think tomorrow afternoon we will see those pick up close to 30 in southwestern Saskatchewan, but for the rest of us, fairly calm day, and that continues to be the trend as we head into Thursday as well. But that doesn't mean that wind chills aren't going to be quite fierce. In fact, tonight close to -45 at times in the far north of the province, a frostbite possible in just a few minutes, and even in southern and central portions under the extreme cold warnings, we will be close to -40 for the wind chills. Even heading into mid-morning tomorrow, they still could be hanging around -40 or so. The polar vortex, or at least a portion of it, responsible in addition to the high pressure for this very cold air. And as you can see, again, it's centered over Hudson Bay, so we're not right in the middle of it. And over the next few days, we should start to see that shift northward again. Conditions will improve and even some warmer air making its way eastward, which you'll see here in our extended outlook in Regina, where after these next few days of wind chills into the -30s, overnight lows near -30, we're going to see some clearing and temperatures really warming up. Look at Sunday, back close to the freezing mark and then dropping back to more seasonal values. And for Saskatoon, again, you should be around -4 this time of year. You are some 20 degrees plus colder than that over these next couple of days before things, again, Natasha, finally do make a warm up. So you will be able to get back outside and enjoy those activities once more.
Sounds great. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
We'll have more news after the break. Munch Catering is not only about making good food, it's about creating opportunities for its staff beyond the kitchen. The Regina company hires people with disabilities, trains them, and supports them in pursuing their career goals. Now it has expanded into a new space that will allow it to make more food and hire more staff. We headed to their kitchen to find out more.
So Munch Catering, our mission is to train cognitively disabled adults to work in the restaurant industry or the food industry by doing catering, and they work and they get paid like a full wage for their time in those enterprises, and then from that they get the skills to move into jobs in the community. You know, there used to be this thing where people didn't think they had to pay proper wages to people that had a disability. And so they wanted to pay like an actual proper wage, and so we do. We have ever since.
So this morning I was making cupcakes and cookies and icing them. So you put it like in a pipe thing or whatever, and then you squeeze it with your hands, and then you just go around in a circle.
So we have something we call a drive-through, which is where people will order in advance soup or cookies or whatever it is they want to order off our menu on the website. Or we'll put stuff on Facebook like, this week's special, whatever. So then people order the stuff, and then we have a pickup between 4:30 and 6. So everybody on the way home from work just stops in and grabs their soup or cookies or whatever it was.
I originally wanted to volunteer, and I taught cooking classes for a while, and then the manager position was open and they couldn't find anyone. So I said, well, I'll try and do it, and here I am. Oh, it's been amazing, working with the catering assistants and with the staff and just the people that support us. It's just been wonderful.
Everybody has certain skills, everybody has certain things they don't like to do and that they do like to do. So to me, like a good manager looks at their team and they look at the team members and they find roles that everybody can excel at. And that is how you get a good team. And it's the same. So like our role is to figure out what the strengths are and what they like, and then help them find jobs that will put them in a position to succeed and be happy. The benefit for the employer is that they end up with someone who's completely competent doing their job, completely reliable, and isn't going to leave, because once someone who has been denied access to the labor market finds their place, they're going to stay.
We had one particular, I remember, came in and she was just so uncertain of herself and her abilities in the kitchen and didn't think she could do it. And she became very successful, eventually moved out. She now cooks and posts all her things that she cooks online. And, it's really great to see them progress in their confidence and their ability to find a job and to be successful. That's what it's all about.
Nathan is back with another look at our forecast.
And my apologies to the kids at a school, Natasha. Looks like it's going to be another very, very cold day tomorrow, starting dangerously cold at -32 in Regina. That wind chill about 10 degrees colder. And by the afternoon, still some sun and clouds sticking around, but wind chill still going to be around the -40 mark. For Saskatoon, a very similar situation. Sun and cloud tomorrow at -31. Wind chill into the low to mid -40s. And we should see even some more clearing in Saskatoon by tomorrow afternoon around -27, wind chill around -40. But we can enjoy some beautiful bird photos from Bob Ferguson, who sends us these shots of a blue jay in the top left there, a whiskey jack, and a grosbeak as well. And he's always sending us great photos. And a reminder, you can always send us your photos at saskphotos@cbc.ca, Natasha.
Great. Thank you so much, Ethan.
You bet.
That's it for us tonight. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/sask or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Ethan will be back with more local news at 11. Thanks for watching and have a great night.